Recorded at the WNDU 16 News Now studios, this is the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold Notre Dame Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, columnist Tom Noy, Notre Dame football beat writer Mike Baradino, and WNDU's Jackson Neal.
He is Mike. He is Jackson. I am Tom. This is the Pot of Gold. For the week of November 14th, everything's off this week because we're doing this on a Thursday. We usually do it on a Wednesday. Couldn't do it Wednesday because Notre Dame men's basketball signs a top 10 recruiting class that we had to get to Wednesday afternoon, so we gave Mike Baradino the day off. He didn't look at the email and see that we're not doing television after today. So he decided to wear a tie for all you readers and listeners out there. He's the only one dressed up.
I like the look, though.
You guys are presentable.
Yeah.
Presentable?
I'll take presentable.
Yeah, presentable. I get it. I didn't shave today. I'm going to do that later on tonight. So no shave for the podcast. We start the podcast like we'll start every podcast the next couple of weeks with the college football playoff rankings. Week 2 this week, Notre Dame is slotted at number 8, but really they're number 9 because number 9 Miami would get an automatic top 4 bid from winning the ACC if that would happen. So Notre Dame at number 8 would actually be number 9. They would play at number 8 Tennessee in the first round, with the second round game against number 1 Oregon. Top 12 real quick. Oregon number 1, or Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Indiana 5. That may change. BYU 6, Tennessee 7. That may change with playing Georgia this week. Notre Dame at 8, Miami at number 9, Alabama number 10, and welcome to the college football playoff party, Ole Miss. If the season ended today, the Georgia Bulldogs at 12 would be out because Boise State would get that 12 spot, and Georgia at 7-2 would be on the outside looking in. Any surprises? Anything else about the college football rankings, gentlemen?
I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just how in play a home playoff game is for Notre Dame.
Right there.
There. I thought after NIU, it was like, okay, there's absolutely no way this is going to happen.
Yep.
And I mean, there's still so many scenarios with the conference champions, all that kind of stuff. But if you start to game it out, it kind of seems like we're headed towards a home playoff game as of right now. Knock on wood.
Please, can we get a home playoff game?
That's what it's feeling like.
And it's really easy. Like you said, you can play through all the scenarios. You can go run through all the scenarios, Jackson. The easiest scenario is Indiana loses at Ohio State and drops. Tennessee loses Saturday at Georgia and drops. And Notre Dame beats Virginia, beats Army, and beats USC. And Notre Dame more than likely will be somewhere in that 6, 7, 8 range to get a home game. Mike, you good with that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think we shouldn't forget about the teams lurking just beyond, like if, that are currently out of the bracket but could, an upset in the conference championship game of a team that's highly ranked enough and still stays in it. There could be some, additional an SMU could get in there or something, and then what do you do with certainly with those 2 loss teams should be concerned about that scenario. Notre Dame as we've said all along, just keep winning and the schedule juice. Very helpful that Army continues to be unbeaten, and so if Notre Dame takes care of business this week and then again at Yankee Stadium, that would be good. It's interesting also that Penn State, as has been noted, continues to be overranked on the strength of a win at USC.
Why?
So it should be held. You have to imagine in the snack room it's going to come up with the committee. Well, when Notre Dame goes out to USC, if it's going to, in order to make this whole scenario play out, going to have to win. So how much credit should Notre Dame get for beating a bad USC team? Mm-hmm. About as much as Penn State.
As Penn State has. Yeah. Well, I think Penn State also gets little bit of credit of winning at Wisconsin.
Oh, they're a mess.
But they're a mess too. But again, Wisconsin is a tough place to play at night. Penn State went in there and won. But after that, the only marquee game that Penn State has on its schedule, at home, by the way, they lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, same old Penn State. So the Army and Navy aspect of glomming onto some of their success and then swinging it over into your. So I have a quote for you every week. We'll have maybe Ward Manuel quote of the week.
You're on Ward Manuel watch.
Yeah, I just love it. It's a lot of stuff. And there'll be no shortage of contradictions as we cross-reference. This was week 2 of the teleconference, and of course he didn't have to go on that I saw because they on ESPN because they revealed it between games. But how about this? What do you make of this, guys? This is from Ward Manuel, College Football Playoff Committee Chair this year. We have to evaluate based on the performance on the field that we see. We can't determine who would hypothetically win a game on paper. That's not any of the things that we do. It's not a part of our protocol to try to predict what would happen in the future. So we don't have any conversations about that as it relates to how we rank the teams. So all this talk about body of work and this and that, and they just kind of, this whole idea, we don't even worry about where we had them last week. It's a fresh batch of data every week, and I don't believe that. I have to believe that you at least are aware of how you because you're splitting hairs one week. Why cast aside all the splitting of the hairs? But that quote, I tweeted it. I just thought it was kind of, and some people are like, they're calling that into question. It does seem a little odd. And the other thing will be interesting to see, he is given credit, Ward Manuel the week before gave Indiana credit for beating the teams that were in front of them, even though it had the lowest strength of schedule and still has a very low strength of schedule, 100th. Notre Dame's up to 73rd. Well, Notre Dame and anybody else on the back end of that strength of schedule needs to be treated accordingly. Take care of your business.
Just beating the teams in front of them. You can't help that Florida State stinks. You can't. You beat them 52-3.
Yep.
Just continue to play who you have to play. Continue to win, and I think that all takes care of itself for Notre Dame as we head through into the college football playoff selection show in early December.
How about game control? I threw that into this week's TTP. Do you enjoy the game control stat, and would you like to just share this with our listeners if they haven't seen it yet? Well, Notre Dame, ESPN has that little resume thing there on their analytics, and they have something, I don't know exactly how you determine game control, but I get a sense of it has something to do with make sure you don't fall behind by more than 7 and then just score all the rest of the points. That's apparently a good way to control the game. That's kind of the opposite of the way Miami's been living. Cardiac Canes and the Cardiac Canes didn't work at Georgia Tech. So game control, Notre Dame is 9th in the country, just ahead of Tennessee and still behind Georgia. So Georgia, even with 2 losses, good game control when they didn't lose. And Georgia I still feel like, I think we all probably sense that Georgia's going to give Tennessee a second loss and will be considered ahead. But anyway, so much still to go. Game control. Haven't heard Ward Manuel drop that one, but we'll have to maybe jump on a conference call and ask about it.
Well, game control works in favor of the Irish because ever since they trailed Louisville, they're throttling people. Yeah. Stanford 49-7, Georgia Tech 31-13, wasn't that close. Navy 51-14, and Florida State 52-3. So Notre Dame is doing everything that it needs to do to continue to put itself in position to host a home game.
What I don't know is if game control has a strength of schedule component filtered through.
Ask your guy Ward Manuel. Get Ward Manuel on the line.
That's a Ward question right there.
It is a Ward question.
And A&M is up to 15th and is going to have a chance to beat Texas and give even more value to that season opening win for Notre Dame. And Louisville's hanging in there at 19, and they're really not that good.
No, they're not. Since this is a Thursday show, we're going to do just something just a little different. Usually we do it on Wednesday. Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon at noon, Marcus Freeman met the media for about 10, 12 minutes. Anything of consequence from the Marcus Freeman Zoom call, Mr. Berardino? Well, other than Howard Cross is definitely out for Saturday.
Yeah, we knew that. He did mention that it sounds like we'll not just Donovan Heinisch, but as they rotate through that Al Washington defensive line, you're going to see a little more Sean Sevillano Jr. perhaps taking some snaps. Not that many, I would guess, but it's a Heinisch show there at nose tackle as Cross is out. Notre Dame hopes just this week with the ankle. But and also Armel Mukam might get a little more time in the middle, and Gabe Rubio can play both interior defensive tackle spots. This will be Jack Kaiser's 63rd career game, moving him out of a tie with Houston Griffith for most game appearances in Notre Dame history. It's amazing because I always would have thought Johnny Lujack should have played that many. I'm joking. They didn't play that many games. They didn't have COVID years. They didn't have, even with the war, all that. It's kind of a silly. It's become silly. Mm-hmm. But I still think there's significance to suiting up and being out there for, especially a program of this ilk in this era. And soon, here's the thing. With no more, are we finally done?
We are done.
We're done with the COVID bonus, boys.
This is it. This is it
so
for
this
COVID
is,
bonus.
If you're going to go ahead and set the record,
might as well do it this year.
Because Howard Cross was right behind him. He was a couple, but he's missing a game. Riley Mills, I think,
is like 50, he's at 59.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So I think Jack's going to he's going to distance himself from the group, and then that's it. That should be it.
Not that we condone it, but you could make a lot of money betting people. Like you said, if you say, I'll bet you $5 you can't tell me who the player is that had appeared in the most games in their career at the University of Notre Dame for football. And people would probably guess 10, 12 people without even getting near Houston Griffith.
That was my craziest thing. I was like, that's
Houston Griffith?
Special teams, it does count even if you're just out there on special teams. And he was good on special teams, not as good in the base safety role. And we'd see him here or there. But hey, it's not special teams count.
Yeah,
vitally important. And yes, he had that. And I don't know if he'll be brought in for some sort of ceremonial conveyance of the record to Jack Kaiser. I doubt that.
Yeah.
But maybe his dad, Howard Griffith, can pop on there and do a quick video. Congratulations. Whatever it's going to be, Pioneer Royal Center, Pioneer High School's Jack Kaiser, former Indiana Mr. Football, in the record book. He's already in there as a captain. Mm-hmm. So, that's an all-timer guy. That's a forever player.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Let's set the stage, Mr. O'Neill.
Jackson O'Neill Jackson.
It's Neil Jackson.
Neil Jackson. I've gotten that one too.
Well, yeah, of course, you got that at Texas A&M.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Texas A&M press box reserved WNDUs.
Oh, that was Purdue. The press box that actually read real.
That's even worse.
Yeah, they had my name right on the thing, but then the actual. I've kept that. It's on my desk right now.
Neil Jackson. All right, setting the stage. It's Virginia 5-4 versus number 8 Notre Dame 8-1. The Cavaliers coming off a 24-19 upset win at number 18 Pittsburgh late Saturday. Pittsburgh lost their quarterback to a concussion in that game. Virginia 3-1 on the road. I was shocked to hear that when Marcus Freeman threw that stat out on Monday. They're one win away from being bowl eligible, but the Cavaliers finish up with Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, and SMU. So getting that last win might be a little tough. Cavaliers defense held Pittsburgh to 292 total yards. The Panthers had come in averaging 38.9 points per game, score only 19 in that loss. Cavaliers have now won 2 of their last 3 games against ranked teams. History, Notre Dame leads the all-time series 4-0, and they won the last game, 2021, in Charlottesville, 28-3. Other than Chris Tyree, what do we know about the Virginia Cavaliers?
Jackson?
I was going to say not much. Not much.
Look, notice how Mike just threw that right to you.
Yeah, right before the show we were talking about how much we don't know about this team. So
I know Chris Tyree. I know.
We just said besides Chris Tyree.
Yeah. What do you want to know about George Welsh? Sean Moore. But
Brendan Armstrong.
Yeah, that's right. Brendan Armstrong. Brendan.
Brendan.
No D. Not enough W's either. But the 2 games before this Pitt game against Eli Holstein-less Panthers, 41-14 loss to North Carolina of Mac Brown's swan song, and a 48-31 at Clemson loss. So and no shame in that, but it's not like this is. Aforementioned Louisville beat Virginia at Charlottesville 24-20. So I don't know. This, Pat Narduzzi of Pitt using that setback to say the ACC is, the best conference.
The toughest league.
Come on. Save it. Now, Virginia, Tony Elliott with the Clemson history, championship DNA as an assistant at Clemson. They're on the right path. They have a winning record, and I don't think they'll be embarrassed here. I don't think they're going to mail it in the way Florida State did. I mean, that's a real problem. Even the coaching staff, the whole thing with the timeout at the end of the first half, just blown up in their face. Mike Norvell, and then, of course, he fired the offensive coordinator.
Don't get ahead of us. We're going to talk about Florida State when we rewind. Talk about the Cavaliers. Come on, what do you know?
Save that point, but what's it, Calandrea?
Yeah.
He's pretty good, but Marcus Freeman saying today on the Zoom, they're going to need to affect him. They're going to need to put some pressure on him. And it's interesting because Howard Cross, so important. I know they had 8 sacks after he left the game, mostly, but he's so important with that interior pressure. It's a good spot for Donovan Heinisch to show that he is good enough to inherit that role when Howard Cross finally moves to the NFL after 6 years and they don't have to go portaling for a nose tackle. Because right now, you could make the case that that's one of the prime off-season needs would be, or not even off-season need, December need, amidst all this stuff, get a big guy, 300-pounder in the portal who can do cross-like things, even though he's not 300 pounds.
All right, so we'll bring up Chris Tyree, former Notre Dame running back, former Notre Dame wide receiver, a Notre Dame graduate who's a grad transfer now at Virginia, where he went home. Probably went home to become more of a game breaker, more of a every game guy for the Cavaliers, but that hasn't turned out that way. He's only had 3 carries for 25 yards rushing this year, and then receiving, he's at 22 receptions for 124 yards and 0 touchdowns. So he's kind of a bit player there, but that's like the only guy other than Anthony Calandrea, who's a sophomore. He's a small guy. Anthony Calandrea stands 6 foot.
Yeah,
which means
he's probably not 6 foot.
Means 5'11". Yeah, right? That means he's not a 6 foot.
That means he's not 6 foot. And one of the other interesting facts I uncovered doing my Virginia research this week is they've played 4 quarterbacks. What's the saying? If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks.
Yeah,
they play 4. 4 quarterbacks have all seen action in at least 5 games for Virginia. Calandrea is the best one of the bunch. He was like an all-freshman guy, conference guy last year, setting records for this, setting records for that. So he can throw it, he can run it, but he also gets sacked a lot. I think he's got, 204 yards rushing this year, or 259 yards rushing, and 204 yards lost rushing. So he gets sacked a lot, not really mobile out of the pocket, but again, you get a quarterback some confidence in a game like Saturday, which has a tendency to get a little wacky if it's senior day, but not lately for Notre Dame. You never know what's going to happen on Saturday. You never know.
I mean, sacks allowed, fellas. Virginia 31 on the year. Florida State now at 38 after 8 in one game. So it'll be interesting to see what that number for Virginia climbs to. 41 is the quote-unquote lead. The worst, that's Oklahoma. But 31, 3.5 per game by Virginia. Interesting over-under for the Notre Dame pass rush.
Safety Jonas Sanker is their top defensive guy. He leads the team in tackles. It's not even close. He's got 69 stops. The next closest guy has 49. Sanker also has 7 tackles for loss. 1 sack he got last week. Interception he got last week. 3 passes broken up, a quarterback hurry, and a fumble return for 4 yards. He also blocked a kick last week. Jonas Sanker is really good at safety. He played 8-man football in Virginia, but he's pretty good at 11-man football too. So that's your roundup of Virginia offensively, Virginia defensively. Notre Dame letdown game for the Irish on Saturday on Senior Day?
I don't think so. I mean, Virginia, the one thing I will say is they do kind of hang tough around some teams. I watched that Virginia-Clemson game. First half, Virginia just kind of hanging around. So they've shown the ability to hang around and cause little problems. But the way Notre Dame looks right now, putting up 50-plus points in the past 2 games, like there's no way. If Notre Dame starts to touch those types of numbers, I don't think Virginia has the ability to keep up with that.
All right. It seemed like we've done this a lot during this stretch of wins, but let's reluctantly, Mr. Neal, go to Irish Rewind. The less said about this game, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Notre Dame 52, Florida State 3. The Irish scored 31 unanswered points in the second half. Riley Mills, 3 sacks. And like Mike said, the Irish tallied 8 sacks that night. Really good home atmosphere. I was surprised by how good that crowd was. Maybe a preview of a December home game, maybe. Maybe a preview of a December night game, maybe. And this is like saying water is wet, but Florida State stinks, as evidence of this week when Mike Norvell fired his offensive coordinator, fired his defensive coordinator, and fired his wide receivers coach. More firings to come down in Tallahassee. Mike, what can we say about Notre Dame, Florida State? Put a period on that one.
Before I forget, as by my unofficial count, that's now 4 assistant coaches that have lost their jobs after a short span after Notre Dame played them, because Georgia Tech's special teams coach is no longer there. It didn't happen immediately, but very soon after, maybe the week after Notre Dame ran multiple, as you wrote about, multiple fakes and rooskies and everything.
That.
And that guy, he's not running the Georgia Tech special teams anymore. Was there somebody else?
Graham Harrell.
Oh yeah, there you go.
After that game,
that's 5. So who will get bounced? And we don't wish this on anyone, but it's a perilous thing to be the assistant to face Notre Dame this year, because they will expose you. What is the question? Florida State put a period on it.
What can possibly be said about that game, other than Florida State stinks, which is what we know.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they can come up with 60. If they think they need to come up with $63 million, I think, to say goodbye to Mike Norvell so quickly, and then I think Feinbaum putting out there that Dion could end up at Florida State, whatever. But as far as that game, that's exactly what you have to do if you're Notre Dame and you're facing a team like that. Don't give them any oxygen. I really thought, and I asked Marty Biaggi about this, the end of the first half was fascinating. We alluded to the fact that it blew up in Norvell's face. He called a timeout, but here's how it blew up. Notre Dame sent Zach Yoakum out because Mitch Jeter's still kind of iffy. He kicked some extra points, but he missed a field goal attempt, and that hip's still an issue. It's going to be, especially as it gets colder. But Zach Yoakum was sent out to try a 52-yard field goal. Notre Dame leading at that moment, 14-3, and the ball was snapped. That was not Notre Dame calling the timeout to just to try to pull them off sides. That was a 4th and 10 anyway, and they snapped the ball, but Florida State was granted the timeout. In the interim, and pretty late in the process, Notre Dame rushed the offense onto the field. Florida State gets caught with 12 men on the field, including the guy they had sent in, as Biaggi said, the rush. They want a returner back there in case Yoakum was way short on the field goal, I assume, or a block. And Florida State had 4 field goal blocks on the year, so I was thinking also that maybe they had seen something, and that's why they called the timeout. They wanted to get at it. But they rushed that guy on the field. Now it's 12 guys, and Riley Leonard just coolly, after the previous 2 throws were brutal, one knocked out a trombone player, he just calmly finds Faison for 20 yards down the middle, and then the very next play, touchdown. And here's the cool thing. When you have 12 guys on the field, the time is restored if it was the defense that did that. So that was actually, Notre Dame went something like 35 more yards in 4 seconds, 2 plays. Whatever, it became 21-3 and the route was on. So different if they just let Yoakum take the field goal attempt, probably miss it, 52. We've not seen him make one of those, windy night. And then a short field, and who knows what kind of benefit Florida State could add. Very pivotal moment, and that's the kind of stuff that when you're a one-win team,
everything like that happens.
Yeah, and it just was disastrous. But good on Notre Dame that it was ready to make that switch, because obviously we've seen so many 4th down attempts, many successful by Notre Dame's offense. They kind of roll the dice here in the Anthony Tresh era, and in that case, they were willing to try a 52-yard field goal, and Florida State wouldn't let them.
Jackson, your impressions of your first Notre Dame home football night game?
I mean, awesome environment. Wished it was a better game. Wish it was the top 10 matchup we were all expecting coming into the year. I mean, kind of wrapped it up. There's nothing really more to say. The one thing I will say, I think that 34-yard touchdown run by Leonard, was that the fastest he's looked this season? He looked really fast on that. I don't know, he reached another gear I feel like I haven't seen from him, but that's, I mean, other than that, just not much to
Good
say
point
about that
for a
game.
guy coming off multiple surgeries on that ankle, and he's had 60, 70-yard runs in the past. That was a 34, but you're right. And of
After
course,
that cut,
leaping,
he
too.
looked
He looked good.
really fast.
Did you hang out with John Bon Jovi down there?
I did not hang out. I was up in the press box with you.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why would you want to be up there? I thought maybe you're down there visiting.
I was like
with,
sitting in front of you.
and I would like to propose something. I really enjoyed the halftime. Tom and I were there. I enjoyed the halftime medley of Bon Jovi hits, and I think the band did great with that. More of that. That's my era. I'm not, that's.
Yeah.
He had a nice career, and he seems like a nice fellow from a distance, and of course a connection to Notre Dame through his son.
Okay. Enough.
That's what we got.
Enough
That's the
talking.
Florida Steak. Also, DJ Cool. Had you seen? When was the last time you were at a DJ Cool joint?
Enough talking about the current Irish quarterback and the Jersey guy. Let's bring in a former Notre Dame quarterback
That's right.
and a Jersey guy in Brandon Wimbush.
There he is.
And he joins us now. Brandon, can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you guys nice and clear.
Nice.
Thanks for having me on.
Perfect.
Okay, let's start with this. Notre Dame win streak. What's been the most impressive aspect of what they've been able to do from your point of view since you watched them lose to Northern Illinois way back in September?
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about Mr. Bon Jovi, and I just want to preface he's an awesome guy.
Yes.
I spent the summer with him because his son is a good friend of mine and he got married in London, and he's a hell of a tennis player. And he takes the game very seriously. But off the court, one of the most kind celebrities you'll ever meet. But that's John, and his son is the same way, Jesse. So, but I think on the football front, it's been awesome to see the consistency from the team, right? Like I feel like they've definitely found their identity. And whatever that might be, whether it's using Riley multiple ways, obviously with his feet on the ground, him being the leader of this unit, of the offensive unit, right? They've definitely found their identity and they've stuck with it, and it's led to consistency. Everyone kind of knows their roles, which has led to them being able to put this streak together, which has been super exciting.
Riley Leonard has looked like a different quarterback since the first bye week, and he said after that bye week, he said he went home, kind of cleared his head a little bbit, kind of came to an understanding of what it takes to be the quarterback at the University of Notre Dame. For someone who's gone through that, what kind of adjustment is that to be thrust into that spotlight? Win, lose, or draw, play good, play well, play bad, play whatever. You're always under the microscope as the quarterback at Notre Dame.
Always under the microscope. And similar to Riley, I had the chance to play at a different university, right? So I went down to University of Central Florida and played for an up-and-coming program, right? One that's now in the spotlight as well. But I think Notre Dame is just different when it comes to the spotlight. And our fans are international fans, right? We have fans all over the world, and not just the 90,000 people who are sitting in the stands that weekend. But I think Riley, he understood it, right? Like he came in and he was kind of awe-inspired by coming to play for the University of Notre Dame and having the reputation of being the quarterback, the starting quarterback, and so he got it. But I think there's a part of it where you kind of get into the role of the season and you just become a little bit more comfortable with having that type of status, and his confidence, as you can tell, has heightened as we've gotten underway.
Away from the field, when did you realize that it is different being the quarterback at Notre Dame?
Away from the field, I mean, I still feel it today. I'm 5 years removed. I live in New York City, the biggest city in the country, and there's people that recognize me, and there's people that recognize the brand, and that's never going to end. And I've spent time in London, and it's pretty much the same thing. And so this brand goes beyond, obviously, South Bend. It transcends the last name that you have, that you're representing, not so much on the back of the jersey, but in spirit. And it's an international brand, right, that you have the honor and privilege to represent. And so Riley I think Riley's done a phenomenal job. I've gotten to know him a little bit, and he's done a phenomenal job. So have the other guys, right? I'm really close with Steve Angeli, and the way that he represents not just his last name, but the school comes first and foremost.
Brandon, I want to ask you about your ever expanding portfolio of NIL space and marketing, and is it dual track? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Tell the folks about what's going on lately. I know it's still the Mogul app. You're still part of that? Yeah. So, and then maybe your connections with Notre Dame, maybe especially, I guess all sports, but the football guys that you guys might be in partnership with.
Yeah, so Mogul has been up and running for 5 years, and as everyone knows, name, image, and likeness has really changed the landscape of college sports, and primarily football and men and women's basketball. And so you see it and hear it a lot that people are now buying rosters and spending money to maintain what your roster looks like, right? Roster management is pretty much what NIL is used for, and so. Mogul, again, has been up and running, has been an incumbent, and, we're excited to kind of be the liaison between some of these athletic departments and some of these other, big entities that are spending money, which are known as collectives, and between, those entities and the athletes. And so we get to see a little bit of the activity, right, that's going into some of these players and where they're ending up. And so that's been exciting to see, and obviously we have a good relationship with Notre Dame and their collective, and we've been able to retain a lot of the talent that you see, right? Some of the leaders that we have this year, from Riley to Jordan Clark, and to other guys, and so we just hope to be a stable in the landscape, right? And a platform that athletes and the businesses and the universities can trust. And then on the dual track front, we're working with some of these Olympians that you saw this past summer, from Noah Lyles and Gabby Thomas, to really create a new format of track and field to reignite what track and field means to the general sports fan. And so we're doing that through a new format and by creating a product that's going to be built for broadcast and media.
I'm of the generation that remembers when the Milrose games would be shown on NBC Sports
From the Garden
on a Saturday, right?
From the Garden.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, the Penn Relays, big deal. You probably are already linked in all that. I don't know where that falls on the calendar, but track and field absolutely is worldwide and a big deal.
Yeah.
Speaking of, so my segue there is you're a dual threat guy yourself at Notre Dame, but you have a record that is now on the brink, and that is
Thanks, guys.
Well, let's see. I think you'd like this.
Leave it to Berardino to bring that up.
Yeah, I think you'd be more than happy being a team player for this to fall. But so people know, Brandon Wimbush in 2017 rushed for 14 touchdowns. That's the most by a Notre Dame quarterback. A lot of people probably think, oh, Tony Rice has the all-time record. The season record is Brandon's. And Riley Leonard is now at 13. He seems to get 2 or 3 a game. And
but you know what? I didn't have Denbrock calling my plays. Right? I think if Mike was calling my plays and he knew my talents, he would have leveraged them like he's done with Riley, and that's kind of been their identity. And so Riley's been fortunate to have a guy who's coached the Heisman winner, right? And Jaden Daniels. And now he's back and coaching. Denbrock loves Notre Dame, and you can kind of just tell the love that he has by being around that guy. And I think Riley is super, fortunate to have him be the one who's calling the shots. But yeah, I'm excited for Riley nonetheless, right? You have to root for him. Records are meant to be broken, and I would love it if Riley were able to surpass that this weekend.
What about the one more on that? What about the running styles? Compare your approach to getting in the end zone 14 times to Riley's, where sometimes he's got hops, right? He's basketball guy from the supposedly 360 dunk guy in the pickup games.
I don't buy it.
Right? I don't know. You may have seen it. That's what they say. There's the headline. But how do you guys compare and contrast as runners, especially in designed runs?
Yeah, I think I was more of, all right, the play broke down. sometimes, for what it's worth, wasn't seeing the field the way I should have, and so I took off running. And I think Denbrock has said, all right, this is what our guy's good at. Let's go and design plays specifically for his talents and for his positive attributes, right? And so, and then personally, I think I was a little bit more quick twitched than Riley is, but man, he's 6'5", 220, 230, can lower the shoulder on you. And I think his speed and athleticism is a little bit more deceptive than mine was. And so I think teams have had to kind of readjust how they view his talents. And so, we each have our own talents, each have our own ways, but I think ultimately, getting 6 points is the most important thing, and he's done a great job at doing that.
Did you ever have the luxury, like Riley has said earlier in the year, when Mike Denbrock would call play X and it would come in and Riley would be like, yeah, I'm not running play X. I'm going to run play Y instead and do this. Did you ever do that?
Yeah. That's such a positive affirmation for a quarterback, guys, to be able to say, all right, you guys, we're going to send in 2 plays here, right? And based upon the look of the safeties or based upon the front, the front 7 and their alignment, and we're going to shift this play into a run play, right? And sometimes, mostly, it's like, all right, we're going to go from a pass play and a certain protection into a run play, and that run play is going to go to the running back. But I feel like for Riley, he has the authority and the autonomy to kind of say, all right, I'm going to take this one, and then you pick up the running back as an extra blocker, which gives you even numbers across the board, which is always a good thing.
And then Brandon, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, like off the field, maybe how Riley's started to become and embrace the role of Notre Dame quarterback, but like on the field, there were some early season struggles. Just what have you seen specifically on the field from him change from, let's say, week 1 to now?
I think it's the play calling, right? I think you ultimately, when you can call a play to a certain guy's strengths and you see the confidence in the certain throws and getting him outside the pocket, he's clearly comfortable being outside the pocket and making throws on the run. And, I think sometimes when you put him in the pocket and he has to stand there and scan the entire field, he'll sometimes tuck it and run it. And that's something that you're told by the coaches. All right, if you don't see your first or second read, you're the best athlete on the field, tuck it and run it, right? That's something Tommy Reese told me. He's like, you're the best athlete on the field. Go out there and act like it. And so that for me meant, all right, I don't see my first or second read, tuck it and run it. And then strengths outside the pocket, making throws on the run. I think you see that in Riley and his confidence level. But I ultimately think that it's the difference between week 1 and 2 have been the play calling that Mike has, Coach Denbrock has excelled at.
So Brandon, this is senior day against Virginia, and we were hoping to have you on last week, Florida State week, those 2 things converge. That's cool. We're glad to have you this week. But the idea, anytime I think back of a senior day or the Florida State coming up here, that was the thing in 2018 where you were brought back after graciously allowing Ian Book to get in there. That could not have been easy. I know you talked about it plenty of times, but bring it to modern times here, or right to this moment. Pat Coogan, starter all last year, had to step back, and an injury opened the door for him after the Purdue game. And same thing with Rocco Spindler on the offensive line, a starter for 10 games, and then had to wait. And in the era of the portal, and people have every right to do this, to just say, it just happened at Boston College, where people just say they don't wait around to see how it plays out. It's just like, no, I want to get ahead of the curve. What did you make of that? What does that say about the culture that is developing here with Marcus Freeman of people just, as he says to us all the time, play your role?
Yeah, it's graciously you say that.
And you smile
because it's such a hard thing to go through, especially if you're 18, 19, 20 years old. You to have that type of thing weigh on you, and your dream is to go play in the NFL and to make millions of dollars, and you just think, all right, I got benched and my dream might be coming to an end, right? And And so I think it's ultimately a sign of maturity, honestly, that somebody like these guys that you mentioned, Coogan and myself have to endure, and to really see the big picture, right? And I think that's the ultimate reason why you choose a school like Notre Dame, is because if football is not working out and you ultimately don't play another down, then you have so many other things to kind of not just lean back on, but to to go indulge yourself in, whether it's academics, spiritually, or networking, or other activities on campus, right? And you have such a good family around you. I think that's a great thing that Marcus has kind of installed in his program, is the sign of community and everybody else kind of helping each other out. So, but it's again, it's tough to go through. You never want it to happen, but I think when you have that chance, you have to be prepared and be ready, right? Like you have to prepare as if you're going to start that week, because again, these injuries happen. And if I had gone and sulked for the last 6 weeks, then I wouldn't have been ready to come out against Florida State and keep the team in the position that we were in, which was like, I think, top 5 that week, is number 3. And then the guys are relying on you, right? Like, you have to come out and perform, especially as a quarterback. And that week, I don't know if anyone else knows this, but Clark Lee had sat down the defense and said, "We're going to go win this game, and we're going to keep Brandon Wimbush in the back of our minds." But he told the defense, "We're going to go win this game for Brandon," and that's why I always love Clark, and I love that Vanderbilt's doing so preciously this year. And he has a special place in my heart just because of that week. But everybody teamed up and rallied around me that week, and I think they'll do the same thing for these guys who are stepping in to keep this thing rolling for the Irish.
How much do you look at the NIL era and say, why couldn't you be a quarterback 4 years later?
Oh my goodness, you have no idea. But I'm glad. I'm happy with the position that I'm in, and now there's this settlement, right, that I get to help some of these former guys make a little bit of money. And so again, just kind of being the guy that's in NIL, a lot of those conversations roll through me. But I'm really close with Ian Book still, and that's a guy I'm helping out, on this back pay. And a guy like him, he'll make a few $100,000 just through this settlement, right? And it's exciting to see and help guys like Sean Crawford, Tavon Coney, Dexter Williams, Josh Adams, who was like a Heisman candidate, right? Like, all that goes into this back pay and how much marketability you would have had. And then obviously, given our NBC relationship and that deal, the $150 million over, I think it was 15 years or 10 years, is a significant broadcast and media rights deal that we at Notre Dame are special to have, versus some of these other athletes at other conferences.
How far back will that go, do you think, Brandon? Or is it confined to
2016?
It'll only go back that far. Because there's some who want. I think I've seen reference to guys even maybe a decade and a half ago, or further, that could expand over time. But right now, that's where it is. So that's your wheelhouse. Those are your old teammates. How fulfilling that must be. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the NCAA versus House settlement that dates back to 2016. There's other settlements that are still in progress that could date back further.
Were you ready to leave football behind when football was over?
I don't think so. I think was I ready to leave football behind? No, because it's such a big part of your life, and that's really all you end up knowing, right? For a certain point, when 320 of your days out of the year are consumed by this one sport, and that's what you're learning on the daily. It becomes who you are, right? And it's unfortunate to say, it becomes your identity. And so I'm still kind of learning how to break away from it. And so are so many other people. And I was fortunate enough to have such a good background of like academics and other things that I enjoyed to help me kind of make that transition. But it's hard. And I got the chance to hear Eli Manning chat last week and talk about his transition from playing, and he was ready to leave behind, but he had also like an 18-year career in the NFL and made millions of dollars. So he was excited to not get hit and trampled by 300-pounders. But so I could have had at least 5 or 10 more years and made a little bit of money. But I'm excited where I'm at today.
Okay, so in 2024, you're still known Brandon Wimbush, former Notre Dame quarterback. 5 years from now, who's Brandon Wimbush?
Yeah. He's a CEO who's had multiple exits from companies and businesses that have changed the lives of folks through NIL and through other passions of mine and philanthropy. And he's a family man and just a guy who's given back a lot to Notre Dame athletics. I appreciate that question. It's a genuine one.
Not a bad legacy. Not bad
good.
at all.
Not
I like
bad
that.
at all.
I like that.
You've been so generous with your time. There's that word again. Thank you, Brandon, and keep it going. We'll be watching.
I appreciate it, and apologies again. I couldn't hit you guys on the podcast last week, but excited to keep hearing you guys and following the Irish, and we appreciate the support.
Come back around, talk to us again.
You got it.
That's Brandon Wimbush, our guest spotlight. We will take a break. We'll come right back with the Pod of Old. It's the best part of the show for Mike Berardino when we do our Pod of Old. You know why? He can dust off. Look at him laughing already.
He's excited.
He knows it's coming. Pod of Old, the 1989 kickoff classic at Old Giant Stadium. Not MetLife Stadium. The Giants used to play at a different stadium, Jackson. In case
There you go.
in case you wait, you were aware of that.
I'm from New Jersey. Come
I
on.
know. East Rutherford, New Jersey. Number 2, Notre Dame, 36. This week's opponent, Virginia, 13. It was the first meeting between the teams. The Irish were coming off the 1988 national championship season. Haven't won one since. Sorry. All 5 Irish touchdowns were scored rushing as the Irish rolled up 333 yards all in the first half. The aforementioned Tony Rice, we talked about him earlier in the show, finished with 270 all-purpose yards, not 27 like I wrote. Rice, 8 of 70. Rushing, Ricky Waters went 12 carries for 80 yards. Todd Light had 2 interceptions. The Irish would finish the season 12-1, playing the Orange Bowl. And, of course, Lou Holtz, the always quotable Lou Holtz, after the game says, I'm not going to do it in my Lou Holtz imitation, Mike. You might want to throw that in. Last time we did a Lou Holtz imitation, we wound up editing
we cut that out?
We did cut that out.
They don't know about that Lou Holtz impression. That's probably a good thing.
Our intrepid editor, Jackson Neal, said, that's going on the cutting room floor. So Lou Holtz, after the game against Virginia, again, they win 36-13. They roll up 333 yards in the first half, and Lou Holtz afterwards says, for the first 25 minutes, we were a top 20 team. For the last 35 minutes, we were a bottom 20 team. Classic Lou Holtz. And then there's Mike's guy, George Welsh, who says, quote, it's one of those games where you just burn the film.
Yeah, George Welsh he always seemed angry, but those who covered that team, his teams, said he was a kind guy with a great sense of humor, and it would, nationally or even regionally, you never really got to see it. But also, Virginia of that era was, I believe, one of the uncrowned championship level programs. They were loaded. Herman Moore and Sean Moore and guys, just a lot of guys who went on to the NFL, and they had a huge game against Georgia Tech at one point where Georgia Tech ended up winning it and going on to split the national title, I believe, with Colorado. But you gave me that date, and I want to see where was I that day?
Where was Mike?
Where was Mike?
Where was
We're
I
not going to do
day?
where was Jackson. But
Yeah.
Where was Mike?
I gotta
this one.
call it up here and then do the whole thing. So that was August 31st, 1989.
Yep.
I'm fresh out of Carolina, and I'm working for the Durham Herald Sun. And
They made you go write about some guy named Krzyzewski, right?
no, not yet, not at that point. But I'll have to keep looking there because I may have just been. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out.
August 31st, August 31st, 1989. I was probably at some kegger at the University of Dayton my senior year at college. So
That sounds fun.
I wasn't watching Notre Dame and Virginia at that point.
Speaking of Dayton, former University of Dayton quarterback Jerry Faust,
There you go.
R.I.P.
Jerry Faust passed away earlier this week, age 89. And Mike Berardino wrote the obit. You can see on ND Insider if you want more information on Jerry Faust. So, hey, Jackson, guess what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time to speak up.
We can do that.
We're going north of the border this week. We're going to Canada, specifically Niagara Falls, Canada. Dennis from the aforementioned Niagara Falls, Canada says, "Hi, gents. Wondering if you would like to take a shot at this one. What is Notre Dame's record if Sam Hartman played with this year's team and Riley Leonard played with last year's team?"
What's the record in each case?
Yeah. And then that's part one. All right, so file part one away. And does Riley Leonard come out with the best record either way? Is Riley Leonard the better quarterback? I'll answer that first. Yes, I think Riley Leonard's a better quarterback than Sam Hartman.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
This is who's calling the plays? Who's calling the plays for each of these guys? Who's calling the plays? Sam Hartman.
Let's go with the current coordinators. Mike Denbrock this year for Sam Hartman, and let's go with Jared Parker last year with Riley Leonard.
So many variables to this. When you talk about record, obviously a quarterback, who would have been more productive in each system. Anybody in a Mike Denbrock system probably going to be more productive than anybody in a first-year OC, true play caller, Jared Parker system. That was really a tough sledding, especially at Louisville and at Clemson. Would have been nice when you think back with that Louisville pass rush, with the Clemson defensive front, to have more mobility. Yep.
Riley Leonard just taking off.
Yeah.
That's
instead
helpful.
Instead of Sam Hartman throwing the pick six against Clemson.
Yep.
Maybe Riley Leonard runs for 15 yards and sees a hole.
Yep. Conversely, you think back Northern Illinois, how would Sam Hartman have been able to, like that deep ball late that never got there, and we're still waiting for it to get there? Hartman maybe completes that.
And Sam Hartman doesn't run early and get hit and get hurt against Northern Illinois.
But then Sam
Leonard
ran late against Duke, and and the worlds collided there in Canada. And I still can't believe 4th and 16.
That's that. Going back and
17.
watching that play that's a fun one.
Well, I was standing on the sideline and I'm thinking, there's no way Sam Hartman's picking this up. And then all of a sudden he's almost run into the end zone. We were right there.
That's a fun one to watch.
One of the most inexplicable conversions, there's a project for you, Jackson. Inexplicable conversions in program history, in modern college football history. Not that Sam Hartman was dreadfully slow, because he had a history of running, but I don't know how the heck that happened. So that's a great question from Canada, but really a hypothetical that's unanswerable. But to actually try to answer it, he wants to know
what the records would be.
What the records would be. So last year's final record was
10-3.
10-3, and I'm going to say if Riley Leonard had been there and stayed healthy all year with Jared Parker calling the plays, does he play in the bowl game or does he opt out?
And then here's another hypothetical. Does he run the right way against Ohio State and pick up that first down?
Wow.
Huh?
Yeah.
So there's like you said, there's so many variables because, again,
Riley Leonard picks up that 4th and 1 early in the game in the red zone. Sam kind of let up on that one. Riley Leonard has proven he will lower the shoulder, lower the boom, but Hartman was a better passer. They just couldn't protect him well enough.
Look at the offensive lines.
Yeah.
Sam Hartman probably played behind a better offensive line last year than what the offensive line is like this year.
I don't know. This one's semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award.
I think that's that's like career achievement.
Yeah.
With Joe Moore Award.
Sure. Joe Alt, Blake Fisher.
I mean, come on, those two guys.
And Zeke Correll's gone on to do very well at NC State, which is a bad. They've imploded because their quarterback got hurt, Grayson McCall. But Zeke has gone. I mean, if you could have had that much experience as your center this year, nothing against what Coogan and Craig had done, but that would have been more continuity. But no, it's why these hypotheticals are unanswerable. It's the 2023 Notre Dame experience. Well, with that amount of talent, NFL-ready talent around it, and that much college football production at quarterback coming in, will always be one of the great underachievements.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing just thinking about this is just the difference in like when I'm looking at these games, the losses, specifically the Ohio State, the Louisville, the Clemson, and seeing the plays that Leonard could have made to win those football games.
Right.
But I'm also seeing the 41 points up at home against Central Michigan. It just feels like the classic quarterback situation where Hartman's floor, the worst you're going to get is like higher than Leonard. Like Leonard, we saw against NIU, can be really, really atrocious. Yeah. But for those big games, I don't know. It's why I'm picking Leonard every single time, because I just see that 3-point loss to Ohio State. Thinking about the Clemson game. It's just, I think he could make those plays to maybe have switched at least one of those losses into a win.
I mean, it's more enjoyable to cover Riley Leonard and chronicle the way he talks about a game. For one thing, he comes in every game. Sam was
game.
Not comfortable
No.
here. He never really, even when he tried to be comfortable, it came off as fake because no girl threw a marshmallow into your cocoa. That didn't happen, but it was a great.
It might happen on Saturday.
Yeah, but it's a shame because it'll always be fascinating. I'm sure Truth Serum. That's not just coordinators, but give Sam Hartman this schedule. That was a tough schedule last year.
I've been looking back.
Appreciably tougher schedule. I don't know exactly where it was, and game control was elusive last year. This year, they've had a chance to. Riley Leonard's had a chance to grow into this, build up confidence, and become a complete quarterback. Here's something interesting too. When Riley Leonard got here, there was still so much left in the tank, and he's preparing for, as Brandon Wimbush talked, hopefully an NFL career for himself. Everybody in college wants to be something more than they are at the moment. But Sam Hartman was a complete product, a finished product, who was supposed to be plug and play, automatic, 40 touchdowns, Heisman finalist, etc. Thought he was going to be playing for Tommy Rees as his OC, and it ends up being, after a few detours, Colin Klein and Andy Ludwig, R.I.P., then Jared Parker. So that was a lot. I'm defending Sam Hartman here. I think
you're on the Sam Hartman train.
Well, yeah. I'm just imagining that level of production and accuracy, but it's unanswerable.
Yeah, I'm going to go 12-1 last year. They beat Ohio State. They beat Louisville. They lose to Clemson. I'm going to say they'd be 8-1 right now with Sam Hartman. But that loss would be probably at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
They would beat Northern Illinois, and then maybe USC. They lose to USC, so that's
this year with Sam Hartman, they would lose to USC. That's what you're saying.
Why
is that?
They would lose at Texas A&M, and they would lose at USC because the big road games of the year. Where was Sam Hartman other than the fourth down?
I don't think. Remember, he had a career-long, forever, multiple decade problem with Clemson, multiple decade problem with Louisville. And NC State, he solved that multiple decade problem, but
it helped to have Audric Estime.
That was just a weird day, but no, that's a fun one, and it is so much more.
It is.
It really makes you take stock of the fact that this is not touch football. This is not Thanksgiving backyard. Let dad be the all-time quarterback. It's not that simple. There's so much that goes into it, and schedule and play calling, not the least of it. So I would say they would be. I'm going to say I like what you said there about this year, but Sam Hartman beat Mike Elko's team last year at Duke, so I'm going to say they would be unbeaten with Sam Hartman this year. And last year's team, sign me up for some.
Are you related to Sam Hartman that we don't know about?
I don't know where that's coming from.
Jeez.
And then and Riley last year would have one additional loss because somehow I don't know where that would be, because that was a big boy slate.
That was a big boy slate.
All right.
Pot of bold. Let's go. One hot take, one prediction from three people. Who wants to go first?
It's always me.
Mike
Mike has to think of his right now. That's what I'm doing right now.
Because here's Berardino. Wait, pot of bold. We have to do a hot take and a prediction. Oh my God!
When did they add this?
Yeah, is this a new segment?
Yeah.
This wasn't on the rundown list. But yes, it was.
Pot
Okay.
of what?
Bold gold.
Okay, I'll go first then. I'll go first.
Jackson's not ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
All right.
I'll go first. You're going last because you're never ready.
Never ready.
Jaden Greathouse gets 2 touchdowns this week. There's my pot of bold. And how's this for my prediction? The last 5 senior day games, like Saturday will be with marshmallows, Notre Dame has outscored its opponent by an average of 45.8 to 7. So I'm going to round down and say prediction, Notre Dame 45, Virginia 7. There.
I like that. All right, I'm going kind of something similar. For my bold prediction, I'm going Riley Leonard throws for 4 touchdowns. You can throw against Virginia. I mean, they're the 3rd worst pass defense in the ACC. I want to see Leonard just put up a day where we've seen him with running the football. Just put up a day with a ton of touchdowns throwing the football. Get those stats up. So I think he throws for 4 touchdowns. And then my prediction for a score, pretty similar, 41-14. I think maybe there for the first quarter, maybe 7-7 for a second. But at the end of the day, they're going to run away with this game.
Moment of truth, Bernardino. You're up.
I feel like they're not necessarily looking ahead, but in terms of the play calling, in terms of the game control, in terms of the eye test and all that, you hold back a little something after the break once the thing is in hand because Army's coming up, and you don't want to give Army too much of a look at some may hold some things back for the Black Knights. Feels like 38-10 is about right. I'd be surprised if Notre Dame gets to 50 again. And I'm going to go with Senior Day, Jack Kaiser, pick 6.
Look at that.
Wow. Story. That's
He's done it before.
It's like a Hollywood
Done it
script
before,
right there.
and I think there'll be opportunities.
We'll see how those predictions, those those hot takes and predictions hold up when we return with Pot of Gold. Next week, we will recap Virginia. We will preview Army. We may or may not talk about the college football playoff because we may go a day early next week, but all that and more next week on Pot of Gold. See you then.
This has been the South Bend Tribune's Pot of Gold podcast, your home for insightful Notre Dame football coverage and analysis.